Yo, what's going on, fam, out there? It's your boy Tahir Johnson, and we are back with another episode of the Cannabis Diversity Report like we never left. Got my boy Jerel Registry in the building from Curio Wellness. How you doing, Jerel?
Oh, doing well, man. I'm excited to be on.
Nah, man. Well, it's definitely a pleasure to have you here. You're doing great things in the industry, and I definitely think it's important to highlight, people like you that are not only doing things for, the social equity community, but a brother with a background like yours. I think it's a great story.
Oh, no, I appreciate it, man. The support you give the community and really the cannabis community broadly is killer.
Yeah, man. We appreciate it, man. Well, talk about coincidences. You see, I'm repping the brand today, and it's the first day in the new office today, huh?
It is. We just moved from down the road. So Curio Wellness, the cultivator and manufacturer, we started out the corporate team co-located with the cultivation facility. And as it grew, we moved to a temporary office just down the road. And now another mile or two down the road, we're in our permanent like corporate headquarters of sorts. So literally this morning, I was unpacking boxes in our first day here.
Okay, nice, nice. And so for those that don't listen, that don't know, Curio Wellness is a cannabis brand out of Maryland. But Jarrell, I'll let you tell it. Tell a little bit more about Curio Wellness, and also yourself. How did you get into the cannabis industry?
Sure, sure. So Curio is the largest cultivator and manufacturer in the state of Maryland. We were founded back in 2014 by Michael Bronfine and Wendy Bronfine, a father-daughter duo, right? So Wendy actually brought the idea as Maryland introduced a medical program to Michael, and Michael's background is mostly in healthcare services as an entrepreneur and an investor. So the two of them pulled together really a killer team to go build out and apply for a license, build out a facility that, after having won a license, made its first dollar of sales in December of 2017. And then, and now, since then, we joke around that we've been the market leader ever since then because we were the first dollar of wholesale sales in the state of Maryland. And we kind of continue that leadership position. Curio is really based on a scientific approach to developing treatments that really connect directly to particular conditions. The idea being that we can work towards defining quality in the vein of connecting patients with treatments that. I mean, it's moving day, right? Everybody's settling in.
Hey, man, they don't know you're live right now.
Yeah, I saw them coming, so I was like stuttering here, right? But Curio really wants to define quality as our ability to address a patient's condition, right? So even broader than the medical community, really working towards developing products and treatments that patients or consumers can look at and say, I understand what effect this will generate for me, right? So that's kind of Curio's story. And as about 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago now, Michael Bronfine, seeing honestly the lack of diversity among licensees up to the point of really the summer of 2018, was frustrated and got together with another investor of ours named Theo Rogers, a very successful real estate developer. He launched and founded and owns one of the largest Black-owned real estate development firms in the Mid-Atlantic. He's an investor in Curio, and he and Michael go back a long way. So they started talking about these diversity issues that they saw becoming more prominent in the industry, and came up with this idea to introduce a business ownership opportunity for diverse licensees, right? So how do we support more diverse business ownership in the cannabis industry? So based on that initial idea, Curio then, or Michael then reached out to me to, sorry, I'm like thinking about people walking back and forth, right? But Michael then reached out to me because I'd worked with him 10 years ago at Sterling Partners, where he led the healthcare investing platform. So my background is mostly corporate finance, right? So when I worked with Michael at Sterling, my job was to work with the portfolio companies, the companies that Sterling Partners had invested in, to make sure that they were taking a finance-based approach to what improvements to their operations generated a better return for their investors, right? So Michael called me from the perspective of wanting to set up a private equity fund and knowing that we were going to have to offer operational support to the dispensary owners that we wanted to support, right? So really, fast forward 2 years, what we've created is a two-pronged approach, really. So Curio Wellness has established a franchisor. Think of it like any franchise business you see out in the marketplace, where the franchisor provides marketing, operational support, even some kind of ongoing training aspects to make sure that the performance of that the franchisee can focus on the financial performance of their store. And then the second prong of the attack is a private equity fund that is designed to provide financing and remove the access to capital barrier for franchisees of the franchisor. And our focus at the fund is on diverse franchisees, right? So diverse entrepreneurs who want to open a dispensary in line with the Curio business model. Oh, you're on mute, brother.
And, that's something that's so needed, man. The last statistic that I saw actually from Leafly, it said that less than 2% African-American ownership in the industry. So it's definitely great to see a company, going out there to with those type of efforts. Can you talk a little bit about, what it takes to actually build a private equity fund and the process to get to where you are?
Sure. So fundamentally, maybe the one-line description of our effort is a $30 million traditional private equity fund, which means that we draw capital as we identify investment opportunities from our investors, and that we aim to be we intend to invest over the first 3 to 5 years of the fund's life, and then exit those opportunities over the next 5 years, such that we have kind of a 10-year window for the investment life. Really pulling that together is a combination of things. The first is the ability to identify investment opportunities on a prospective basis, to think up what the scenario would be in which to invest $30 million in a way that attracts investors to the opportunity. Then that second step is actually presenting that thesis to prospective investors such that they're interested in contributing their capital, right? Because it's going to require a certain level of conviction on their part to believe that we'll be able to successfully invest in creating dispensaries over the next 3 to 5 years. And then on top of that, that we'll be able to generate a return on their capital over the subsequent 5 years as we kind of own a piece of those stores and then exit those stores, right? And that's actually, it's an important point, and maybe a third point in terms of the design of making the investments work, both from the investor standpoint, but also for the franchisees, in that we designed the fund such that the end goal is 100% ownership by the diverse franchisee and business owner, right? So this really is a pathway for a franchisee who may not have the capital, but has the entrepreneurial fire, the expertise, and the willingness and the grit to go in and build a business. We can provide them the capital to go do so as a launch partner. And then as the business hits steady state, the fund can harvest its return and the franchisee can own the business 100%. The way that we do that is by a combination of an equity investment, so we own a portion of the business, as well as lending into the franchisee that they can pay down the lending at a low interest rate over the first few years, and then buy the fund out of the investment opportunity to transition to 100% ownership. Really, there's a whole level of complexity to putting that together, but fundamentally what it does is create a scenario in which a franchisee or entrepreneur can walk into the exercise of building a business with less capital than they would otherwise have to assemble on their own, and partner with somebody who also has the expertise to support them such that if they can build a relationship with the community that they're building their business in, as well as drive the financial performance of their store, they can create an outcome in which they've built a generational, an asset capable of building generational wealth over a 3 to 6 year horizon. And they've also generated a return for investors who then can turn around and invest again in creating the next generation of diverse entrepreneurs.
Right, right. And I've definitely seen a lot of people interested in it, and it definitely sounds like a great opportunity. Who would you say is the right fit for this? That's interested, they're interested in the opportunity.
Sure. So first and foremost, Curio is a scientifically and clinically driven company. So we'll exist in both adult use and medical programs, but our perspective on the marketplace will always have a scientific and clinical focus. And in line with that, our franchisees will most likely have a clinical background, right? So whether that be a pharmacist like Tahir Farrakhan, who's the general manager of our existing wellness center today, and really just driving phenomenal performance at that store. That's really where a lot of our conviction around having a clinician at the head comes from, or as well as experience in the retail marketplace. And then also a certain degree of financial wherewithal so that as we speak to a prospective franchisee, it's apparent that they understand how to both drive a phenomenal customer experience, a patient experience inside the store, while balancing the financial needs of a growing business.
Right, right. And, one of the good points that you made is that investing or owning a cannabis business is definitely an opportunity to create generational wealth. Could you talk a little bit about, what you see as the opportunity for wealth in the cannabis industry and, some of the revenue numbers that you've seen cannabis, both annually or recently?
Sure. So, looking just specifically at the Maryland market, I think the 2020 numbers were somewhere in like the 450 million of retail sales across the entire state, in that range. That's a significant revenue opportunity, right? Especially when you consider that there are only, I think it's 92 dispensaries operating in the state, right? So if you look at it, that's an average of 5 million in revenue per store. Now that's, an average can be kind of skewed. There may not be any given store that's earning 5 million. There may be some above and below. And there's certainly some that are above, and I've encountered a few that are below as well. But the main point in understanding that average is being able to compare it to other retail business opportunities, where a $5 million retail opportunity is significant, right? In terms of what other franchise stores are able to generate. It's tough for me to kind of laundry list off the other major franchises around the country, but a $5 million store would be meaningful, right? And, our expectation within the fund is that a store is able to generate better than average revenue, right? And as you have even that level of revenue, you have a business that can really drive wealth creation for the business owners and investors, right? So one of the exciting opportunities about building a business in cannabis is that as the market is continuing to develop, there are these opportunities where you can create a real strong win-win with the right entrepreneur and a supportive set of investors.
Right. And as you said that you're looking at taking this model in adult use and medical markets, are there any particular markets where you guys are looking at the most close?
Sure. So, our commitment to where we want to put stores really isn't, a commitment to particular states. It's more of a criteria of what states have a program where we believe our model could be most successful. So, right now there's about 10 or 11 states that meet that criteria. Maryland is one. You think about Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, Massachusetts. We're watching Missouri and Michigan. We're looking at Virginia, looking for opportunities in Virginia, Florida, and then there are more states that have evolving programs that honestly, I'm just not fully read into as yet, as they're finalizing what their programs will be. But places like Georgia, Arizona looks to be pretty interesting. Uh, Actually, I'm leaving off of my initial list. Illinois is part of our target set. So really a broad swath, but the most important piece to remember about where we want to go is that we also have to line up with when licenses are available. So having a nice long list of states where we want to enter really just creates a scenario in which we can be a little bit more opportunistic about when the states are making licenses available.
Right. And when will people be able to apply to take part in the fund?
Sure. So, keeping in mind that matchmaking piece with when the states make licenses available, we expect to be ready to offer franchise opportunities into the second quarter of this year, right? So, think April, May of this year. That's when we expect to have received the regulatory approvals necessary as a franchisor, as well as tied out the capital raising activity for the fund. As you can imagine, there's really two facets to this exercise. The first is uh, identifying prospective investors who want to participate. So we're about halfway, or more than halfway through the capital raise. We're hoping that we'll finish that up over the next couple of months. And really, the idea is identifying investors who have an interest in both participating in the cannabis industry, supporting diversity, whether in the cannabis industry or more broadly, but also understand the capacity of an investment like the Curio WMBE fund to generate really strong and healthy returns, regardless of our focus on either the cannabis industry or supporting diverse entrepreneurship. And really, if I can kind of detour a little bit, that's an important part of what this fund represents in terms of defining a pathway to break some of the long time challenges within private investment around identifying diverse entrepreneurs to support, right? So historically, it's not just in cannabis that there are few diverse licensees. It's also that there are very few diverse entrepreneurs who either receive capital from kind of traditional private equity sources, or if they do receive capital, they tend to receive a smaller amount than their peers, which is a real challenge from the standpoint of if two people want to go start the next big internet company and one has twice as much capital, guess who wins, right? Because really having the resources on hand available and not having to focus on acquiring those resources allows the entrepreneur with those resources to really push forward and be aggressive about what they want to accomplish.
Right. And that's such a good point, man. And that's why I always tell you how much I love seeing you in this role, because we really do have less access to capital, both outside of cannabis, but in cannabis particularly is so important because we don't have those traditional sources for capital. You can't go into a bank. Right. So, for you as a brother to be like leading this fund, really making a difference in the cannabis industry, what does that really mean for you, man?
I talk to folks quite a bit about this, mostly just because it's an exciting opportunity to be able to address such a large issue with the amount of conviction that we have, right? Like, we're really confident this will work. And most of the reason we're confident it'll work is because we know that diverse entrepreneurs can do it, right? You know what I mean? My father is an entrepreneur. I've been through, I went to Duke for business school. A ton of my classmates are entrepreneurs now. We can see it, right? We know that capacity is there. We know it's untapped, and really just creating a scenario in which we've designed the investment such that investors understand the thesis and the goal in a way that lets them understand what the investment opportunity can yield. Right, so we think that we'll have an investment return that's competitive with any fund out in the industry, and we're able to do it in a way that promotes promotes diverse entrepreneurship, but also erodes some of the excuses from there not being more diverse entrepreneurship, where it's like, oh, somebody doesn't have an investable idea, or somebody doesn't, they don't fit our mold, right? Well, we're making a new mold here.
Right. And, I certainly believe that it takes, having diverse people at the leadership of these different things, the people that are helping to pick the people who are going to get access to it. It certainly makes a difference. Finance is one of those things because it's so highly regulated. I experienced it firsthand. A lot of us are scared to come over, look at the industry. What kind of advice do you have for, other people of color that may be in finance or private equity that are thinking about cannabis?
Sure. So the first thing, it's funny. I benefit from having a long time relationship with Michael, our CEO, in that he comes from the private equity industry. And when he and I first started talking, I was like, look, I'm a finance guy. It's not the, I wasn't sure that I wanted to come and work in the finance department of a cannabis business. And I was like, I don't know what that means if I then want to go back to a more traditional industry. And, ultimately, when you look at it, if you can build a successful business, and particularly at this moment in cannabis where there's kind of growing acceptance, but the cat's not out of the bag yet, right? Like where there's a ton of enthusiasm, there has been some success, but there's really so much more runway to the industry. Getting in at a point where your expertise is most valuable, and there's still a lot of runway in the industry. It's a great opportunity, right? So whether that's in a what I'll call a corporate finance role within a cannabis business, or something that's more on the kind of I'll call it transactional finance side, like something on the investment side or lending, or because there are funds that provide access um, to debt instruments in cannabis, right? So there are opportunities for finance people to get involved. I'd encourage anybody who's interested really to take a hard look about where they can add value, right, in or outside of finance. But there's such a need for expertise in this industry just because it's growing, right? There's a lot of expertise from the historic market. Then there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of like kind of finance people and lawyers who came to the market because that's really was required to really apply for licenses effectively, right? But then now we're getting into those phases of needing that functional expertise just to execute the business and kind of oil the gears that really let an industry grow.
Right, right. So true. And I know we talked a lot about the fund, and that's your side of the house. But is there anything else cool going on at Curio that people should know about?
Always, man. So one of the more exciting things that I love to tell people about with Curio is just kind of some of the proof points around our scientific focus, right? So recently we introduced a product called Good Night, and it's a sleep aid, effectively, right? And really, what's exciting about it is the research that led to its development, right? So the Good Night product was built on. Hey, I'll catch you later. Yeah. People checking out the offices. Um, the research that led to the development and introduction of Good Night was based on bringing functional expertise from the pharmacy business or the pharmaceutical business to cannabis, right? So we understood which compounds in cannabis helped patients in sleep. So really what we were designing in our study for whether or not we could introduce a product was what is the vehicle to deliver that medicine when and where it's needed, right? So we had two kind of test products that we were studying. First was one that helped patients fall asleep more quickly, and the other was one that helped them stay asleep, right? And really the difference between those two products, one was a dissolvable lozenge that that as soon as you put it in your mouth, it dissolved, it hit your bloodstream right away. So you received the medicine very quickly. And the other was a time-delayed release tablet, right? So it dissolved in your stomach 3 or 4 hours after you took it. That one helped you stay asleep. And the success of that study really helped us understand and justify the idea of introducing a product where the innovation was in how to get it into a patient in the most effective way. And really that represents, I won't call it, I don't know if it's my place to call it a crowning achievement, but it really was a great success in terms of validating our conviction around what cannabis can be as a quality of life treatment out in the marketplace.
Right, man. Well, I'll definitely second. Y'all stay with some innovation, man. Y'all have some of my favorite products in Maryland's cannabis market for sure, man.
No, that's good.
Yeah, man. And for everybody out there listening, just let people know where can they find you. If they want more information, and where can people follow and find out more about Curio Wellness.
Sure. So Curio is all over social media. So whether you can go to our website, that's www.curiowellness.com. But we're also on Instagram, Facebook, and really anywhere you'd look. For me, I'm a little more plain Jane. I'm just on LinkedIn. I take a lot of grief for not being more active on social media, but it's easy to find me. There aren't too many Jerels out there. So drop me a note.
Yeah, that's all. LinkedIn's good enough, man. That's all you need. If y'all need Jerel, man, y'all got to go on LinkedIn and keep it professional, man.
I love it.
Well, Jerel, man, it's definitely been a pleasure catching up with you, man. I always enjoy rapping. It's definitely great to have you as my first guest on, the Cannabis Diversity Report on my own platform. So definitely looking forward to keep doing this, y'all. Tune in. I'm still rocking with y'all, doing the show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter right now, every week, same time, 11 a.m. Jerel, it's been a pleasure, bro.
Likewise, man. I'm so excited to be on the new platform with you.
Yep, man, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take it easy.
Yep, peace.